firefighters, or police officers. We have 6 other hospitals in our system in Manhattan, Staten Island, Brooklyn, and Queens. Those hospitals received 42 additional patients, including 20 who were brought by barge over to St. Vincent, Staten Island. One of those individuals died at St. Vincent, Staten Island. Our paramedics were at the scene throughout the day yesterday. As you saw and continue to see, we are ready for what we hope will be additional survivors today. We are the closest trauma center, and thus if there are any miraculous recoveries from the wreckage, they will most likely be brought here. I'm going to ask Dr. Westphal to talk to you a bit about our paramedics and the work that they did, our ambulances, and the work that's happening in the trauma center, and then we'll take questions.
Thank you, Mark. Dr. Westphal, Associate Director of the Department of Emergency Medicine. Mr. Ackerman has mentioned the number of patients that we've had, the conditions, and the 4 deaths in Manhattan here. Our paramedics have had about 7 crews since 8 a.m. yesterday morning that have assisted Fidney EMS in obviously this massive undertaking of responding to critical trauma emergencies downtown. All of our crews have been able to participate and treat patients and move patients, and fortunately have not been injured or been critically injured themselves. We have in the emergency department right now all through the night a triple staff of nurses, physicians, physician assistants, and technical staff. The administrative senior management has been up, almost all of them throughout the night, and we've been prepared and are awaiting victims from the site as well. We are, as I think Mayor Giuliani has said over and over, we are very hopeful, we are prepared, and we are expecting to work very hard to resuscitate victims as they're brought here and brought to other hospitals. I know that through the night I've been told by OEM and Fidney that other major hospitals in Manhattan have been similar to ourselves, and we've really decompressed the emergency department, so we're prepared for major injuries, major trauma, as we have had throughout the day.
I'd like to note a couple of important things. We want to first thank all New Yorkers and people from literally throughout the world who came to the hospital yesterday to volunteer their services. Doctors, nurses, just people off the street. We had over 800 people in line at one point in time to give blood. The mayor's office was kind enough to provide buses so we could bring them to other sites to donate that blood. Today, we are still in need of blood. All of New York is in need of blood donations. You should go to the New York Blood Center or the Red Cross, and we will provide those addresses to you. We can't stress enough the thanks to all of the volunteers, our neighborhood residents here in Greenwich Village. Behind my left, there are still tables set up where neighborhood residents are making sandwiches, bringing food. It's truly unbelievable, the outpouring of New Yorkers and the help that they have been. If anyone wants to give blood, we will provide that information to you. We've also received an inordinate amount of clothing through the night. We are very grateful for that, but we are really not in any need of any more of that right now. So we would just like to thank folks for that. It is very important to note that the trauma of this, from a psychological perspective, is going to be hitting New Yorkers more and more today. We particularly encourage parents to talk with their children. I went home for a few hours last night, and I have to tell you, at 2 o'clock in the morning, my teenage children and younger needed to talk. And it's very important that we encourage all parents to do that. In an effort to help with that, we have 3 mental health hotlines that are manned 24 hours a day. We will provide you with those numbers as well. There are many mental health crisis lines. We encourage all New Yorkers to take advantage of this. We have all suffered a terrible trauma in this city, we need to understand it and our feelings and to talk about it. So we encourage New Yorkers to take advantage of these. We have facilities in Westchester, Manhattan, and Staten Island that are manned 24 hours a day for this. We could take questions. There were no additional survivors brought here during the night. We did receive a number of firefighters, police officers, and paramedics, again, mostly with the corneal abrasions and literally lacerations on their hands. I don't know exactly what time it was, but during the night, we did receive the firefighters and paramedics. Yeah, I'll let Dr. Westfall speak to that.
Yes. Well, I don't know about amputation, but to provide additional medical care, we did. We had about 2 crews of about a dozen doctors that went down to there to assist with treating patients. We also had a group, I believe, of about 4 physicians that went up to the Javits Center very late in the night to treat additional patients that were brought there, as they had requested help. I cannot speak for that. I'm not aware.
Sir, how would you characterize your efforts to try to get people from Ground Zero? Are you frustrated by the debris you see there at this point? Were you able to get them out of there with the kinds of
Speaking for our paramedics that had been there all during the day, along with Fidney's paramedics and all other hospitals' paramedics, and if I could just echo what Mr. Ackerman said, I can't believe the number of hundreds of vehicles and ambulances that have responded from the tri-state area and all the metropolitan areas. I've seen Jersey, Connecticut, I've seen Westchester ambulances that have all come. The thing I'd mention with the effort, I think from the very beginning, they have been working in the areas around the Trade Center and have not been inhibited. Obviously, for periods of time, our paramedics, I think all paramedics, were kept away from the buildings as they had a judgment that they were going to be coming down. So that was inhibited, but all through the night, they were assisting firefighters and other crews that were trying to extricate patients and then make judgments as to where they would bring them for care that was appropriate.
Do you expect to see a different kind of injury today as opposed to the sort of injuries you saw yesterday and last night?
Well, I think we would expect to see the victims that we would get today would probably have a number of problems besides the trauma and the injuries that they'd have, which would probably be more severe. We expect to see dehydrations and other complications of that haven't been underneath for probably almost 24 hours right now.
You talked about trauma. How's your own staff, particularly since nobody's coming? You talked about trauma. How are they doing?
Well, our staff, from the standpoint of our trauma team here, ourselves.
Psychological trauma.
Yeah.
How is your staff holding up, particularly since survivors?
Right. Our administrative staff, nurses and physicians have been assisted all throughout the 24 hours by our Department of Psychiatry, by our pastoral care, by our priests and sisters that have been down there, not just for the patients, but for our staff entirely. And we've had a couple of individuals that have needed time to sit down and talk with them and to cry with them, and that's happened throughout the day.
I think it's just important to note too that a number of our nurses and physicians are married to firefighters and police officers, and they worked throughout the day yesterday and the night not knowing where their loved ones were. We're very grateful that all of our paramedics that were at the scene and physicians and nurses are okay. We did lose an ambulance. One of our ambulances was crushed in the debris, but our hearts certainly go out to our colleagues in the fire department and in the police department and all of the other victims. But just one at a time, please. One more and then we'll go.
About anybody else who might be coming?
We have not gotten any information about new victims coming to us. Sure. We have in our system, entire system, 2,600 beds throughout the city. Yesterday we were able to transfer some of our patients to other sites, discharge patients appropriately, and then we opened up as many beds as possible here. We still have bed availability here. Sure.
Yeah, of the patients who came in, again, over 361, right, we had, again, as was mentioned, we had 5 patients expire. 2 who came in what we call traumatic arrest from the injury, needing CPR coming in the door. Those patients both expired in the emergency department. A firefighter came in with major injuries and chest pain and went to the operating room and expired there. And then we had another individual come in during the night, during the morning hours with severe burns, who ended up expiring upstairs in our surgical ICU. Fifth person Mr. Ackerman mentioned, was brought to Staten Island, St. Vincent's, and expired there. I can tell you we had 50 major traumas and major injuries, and I can tell you, unfortunately, I happened to be here in '93 when we had the other World Trade Center disaster. I can tell you then, throughout the city, there were 10 deaths from that disaster, and here we had the first victim. That time we had 1 death the entire time. And you folks will know better than I the hundreds and perhaps thousands of people that may die from this.
So that is the word from St. Vincent's Hospital to this point, and we are looking again at these live pictures from ground zero, basically, and I wonder if we can possibly find some of these workers, whether they're firefighters or otherwise. Maybe we could pan down there just to give people some idea of the scale of this tremendous debris that's been left behind. There you go. And just the massive undertaking that this will be. Right, massive in the sense that St. Vincent's is saying that they received more than 400 patients at not only their hospital but their associated hospitals. 5 people out of that has passed away. 5 people have passed away, but what they clearly are doing is bracing for many, many more people. They have more than 2,500 beds available. They're not full yet. And they're saying that this is an internal family crisis for them, that many of their nurses and paramedics are married to firefighters. Some 300 firefighters are still unaccounted for. So while they're trying to treat hundreds of people who have been victimized by this terrorist attack, they also are worrying about their own and waiting to hear word about their husbands and wives who may be trapped in that rubble as we look at it there. Well, they have gone to triple staff there, and again, seeking blood. They want blood donors to help in that New York City area. And they talked about a huge outpouring. They had 800 people standing in line yesterday offering to donate blood, and they're saying that they have information there at St. Vincent's for people to go to the New York Blood Center or to go to the Red Cross. They do need more blood donations. They do not need any more clothing donations, but I think it's just a sense of New Yorkers wanting to try to help and contribute during this time of crisis. And that was duly noted. Duly noted. At the press conference. Let's go back now. David Haffenreffer is with us from New York, and is going to bring us up to speed on the effect for the financial world. David.
Indeed, Vince. Thank you. All the financial markets, as you might imagine, closed in the U.S. today. Even trading of U.S. stocks that trade over the electronic trading firm Instinet have been halted. European markets are open for business at this early hour. Early in the session, many of the major indices were at 3-year lows. They moved back into positive territory at one point, but have, for the most part, turned negative once again. Here's a look at the latest figures at this point. In London, the FT 100 index is basically unchanged at this point. We've got the Xetra DAX index in Frankfurt down by 28 points. In Paris, the CAC 40 lower by 71 points, a decline of 1.6%. The Zurich Swiss Market Index now lower by 1.1%. A look at how the dollar is trading against the other major global currencies. And the Bank of England says the U.S. Federal Reserve has now urged central banks to limit dollar trading to help cut back on the turmoil in the financial markets. We should note that the dollar fell about 2% versus the euro yesterday after the incident in downtown Manhattan. At this point, we've got the euro weaker, down about 1/3 of a cent there at 90 cents and change. We've got the pound trading at 1.46 and the dollar trading a bit higher versus the Japanese yen, 119.58 Japanese yen. Asian markets are now closed for the day, but here is how they ended the session overnight. We had the Nikkei 225 index in Tokyo lower by about 6%. Hang Seng Index in Hong Kong lower by 8%. All these declines sparking some concerns about a possible recession here in the United States. In fact, Sonia Gibbs, the chief equity strategist at Nomura Securities in London, telling us this morning that consumer confidence is expected to be hurt in the United States because of all these terrorist attacks, and that could take a big chunk out of the U.S. gross domestic product figures through the end of the year. Vince and Carol, back to you.
Thank you, David. We keep hearing that word recession, and certainly we'll be in touch with you throughout the days ahead. Carol? Reverberations on Wall Street and market